You're a bit quiet, Damien.
Oh, thank goodness it's Damien and not me.
Oh, for you. Thank goodness Damien's quiet.
Well, there's that too. Evening, everyone.
Hello.
Anyway, I'll take over. Welcome to ZoomZoomers. I'm Cammy, your host. Damien seems to be a little mute right now. If we go round and...
Well, this is awkward. We've never had this situation before, remarkably.
We're all unprepared. I've just been running around looking for a red thing and a green thing.
Oh, shoot, I forgot about that.
Shit.
We can't miss them out again. I mean, the questions are already a month out of date, everyone.
Sorry about those delays and technical issues. So I'm back. Yeah, how about that? Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, we'll go around and introduce you all, if that's okay. So I'll start in what's my top left there. Near, if you could let us know your name and your Twitter handle, please.
It's Near Khan, Near_Khan, Kahn, and I am a vehicle designer.
Thank you very much, Cammy.
Hi, I'm Cammy, sim racer designer. You can find me at Cammy Racing or at Go for the Gap Co.
Excellent. Ian.
Hi, it's Ian Cook from Pop and Colour, artist who draws and paints and is back at car events. Yeah.
Yeah. We're chatting about that in just a moment because it's great to see you out in the wild rather than being restrained to the back of a car recently. So yeah, we'll have a chat about what you've been up to pretty soon. Craig.
Yep. I'm Craig at Craig_Willard, and I'm very much back on the beer this month. I lose track of these things.
It's all one big blur, isn't it? Yeah. Alan.
Hi, I'm Alan Bradley. I'm a presenter of the Motoring Podcast, and my Twitter handle is at AJP Bradley, BRADLEY.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Joe.
Joe Tanner at Stuff About Cars. I do spreadsheets for Stellantis.
And Richard.
Hello, I'm Richard Gooding. I'm a freelance motoring writer and graphic designer, and my Twitter handle is at richgooding.com.
Cool, thanks. So I guess you guys couldn't hear me at all at the beginning there because I was chatting away and nothing was coming back. So apologies to anyone who's listening in thinking that their computer had broken because Damien's chatting away. So just the usual disclaimers. Apologies if these guys swear. I'm sure they won't. They all know the drill by now. But it's all good. Great to see you all. So yeah, let's start actually in with what you've been up to with the car shows and things like that.
Yeah. So yesterday I was at the weekend. It was the Bicester Scramble. So historically a Sunday scramble, but because of COVID and cancellations and various things, they make it a super scramble, which is the 2-day event rather than just 1 day, which was lovely. It was a really nice chilled atmosphere, ace cars as always, and just lovely to see people in reality, like not through, as much as it's lovely to see you guys through a screen, obviously. It was just to like elbow, however you do it now. I don't know what the protocol is. And then also I've been doing a series of like today, just a dealership pop-up, kind of pop-up events. Equally, just good to be out there, and as much as I'm doing the drawings in the car, but it's just nice to be mobile and with people and with an audience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's back to what you do best, really. That's kind of interacting with the public and how people get to know you. So, LA just joined us there. Could you let us know your name and your Twitter handle, please?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, it's LA Wilshire, and my Twitter handle is @1_LA.
Excellent. Thanks, LA. What have you been up to since we last chatted about a month ago? Or 5 weeks, I think it was. It's over a month now.
It is. I've been a bit working in my garden, really.
Nice.
Trying to sort of change it around a little bit because it's a really tiny garden. So what might take an ordinary person about 2 days, it's taken me about 6-7 weeks.
Oh, right.
Yeah, but you know me. Most of you know me now. You know that I've got these conditions that I have to pace myself basically.
Yeah.
So obviously we've had a couple of race weekends as well, so I've had to pace myself across those two, just so I don't burn out and overdo things. So yeah, but I'm really proud of myself. I mean, I didn't have a man around as I was growing up. My mum, single parent, and I became quite self-sufficient. All the shelves up here, I did all them once upon a time, and I'm quite handy. So it's only about 2 foot, 3 foot high, but I built a brick wall, and
wow.
building a little recess for my barbecue. So it's taken its time, but a bit of help from my nephew, I'm getting there.
Excellent. Well, hopefully summer's started now, because it seems like the rainy season lasted quite a long time before we could actually get out there and start doing things. So it's good to know that you're out and about and enjoying the garden as well. Good to hear. Good to hear. Cammy, how's things since we last spoke to you? Were you on last month?
I probably not. I've missed quite a lot of commitments just due to sort of house situation at the moment, and my house is empty, living out of boxes until next week, and I sort of didn't know where I was going to be going and all things like that. But things are on the up now. I've been able to go to a few events. The rainy season, the last day of the rainy season was when I was at Brands Hatch.
Yeah.
Got to watch Toby Trice take a triple victory in his Ginetta, so that was pretty awesome. And had a couple people just recognize me out the blue in the paddock, which was quite nice. Sort of felt semi-famous.
Oh, good. Takes me back to the days when you first met Jess there. And
oh, I was the newbie then. But now the people are coming up to me going, "Oh, are you Cammy?" Well, yes, I am.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic.
Maybe.
And a great job there for Toby, and a great new series that Jeanetta's got going there, which I think bridges the gap nicely between the smaller cars and the proper, well, not proper GT cars, but the level above where Toby is now, because I think Toby's series is still on road tires, but it's a fantastic step that he's managed to take and just dominated the first round of events. Good to see, and good to watch that along live as well. Have you been racing at all, Cammy?
No, unfortunately not. The sim rig is in pieces. It's going to have to go into storage because it won't fit. I'm having to sort of go from house to rented room, and this is what I'm perceiving as my step back to leap forward.
Gotcha.
That's the only way I can stay motivated. Good thing I've kept my little fold-out rig. So once I'm moved, I need to try and do some racing again. It's been a while since I've represented Fordzilla, and they're probably wondering if I'm alive. And they're probably, well, they'll kick me out, then check I'm alive or something. But
yeah,
that's what I don't want them thinking that I'm not interested anymore. It's just life circumstances.
I'm sure I'll understand. It'd be great to see you back and producing some content on your own YouTube channel and everything as well. That'd be good to see. Near, how's things your end? I suppose the rainy season is long gone for you.
Rainy season? The rainy season's between October, November and March, April. It hasn't rained here for a while. What have we been up to? Well, as always, the most interesting stuff I can't talk about, all the stuff we do with OEMs and stuff, I can't talk about any of that.
Yeah.
We do have something very interesting in the workshop that hopefully soon, although I'm not quite sure anymore when, where and how we're going to show. But we have finally kind of launched the Mark IV Sandcat, which we've been talking about and kind of showing. We've kind of soft launched that a while ago. But what we have been doing is a bit of PR for that, and that should be out soon. So there's been some interesting people who've been driving some of our vehicles. So again, I can't talk anything more about that soon, but that for the moment. But there's stuff which you should be seeing in the next month or so.
Oh, I can't wait to see that all start creeping out and revealing some of these secrets. We saw some great shots of you from a while back with your very 90s hairdo, and it's good to see that wasn't just people like me. It's like the cool guys like you, because you are, the design chap. And yeah, you had the curtains as well, rocking those curtains. You still got them, yeah.
You can take the boy out of Manchester, but
and Alan, how's things going your end? Podcasting and just in the world of cars generally?
Not bad. Lots and lots of stuff going on. A huge backlog of it's been press car-tastic around here, actually. This is the first week for 7 weeks I haven't had one. But it's been made much easier by the fact that one of my cars is, I think Ian was closer to one of my cars today than I've been for weeks and weeks and weeks. Where he was.
Is that your Yaris?
Yes.
Is that yours?
Yeah.
Ah, I photographed it.
Did you? Oh, cool.
Yeah, I did. I was
Oh,
going to send it to you to be like, I've seen this. I didn't know it was yours though.
Yeah. That would have lessened the impact a little bit. Yeah. No. I saw where you were today. So he was at the place that does all my car stuff.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
my mate Dave. But yeah, I had loads of special editions to come and loads of podcasting and things. So
Excellent. And
plenty to do.
How long's Gordon the Gopher been behind you? I've only just noticed.
Gordon, I decided it looked untidy tonight, so Gordon moved down from. Gordon normally lives on the top of the rack over there.
Okay.
And so Gordon got moved down tonight. Yeah.
Oh, guest appearance. It's nice to see.
Yes. He's wearing an "I'm with this idiot" t-shirt. That one. Yes. That's a very familiar little car. Well, it was. I just need them to be less busy and actually do work on it.
Right. Okay.
And I know they've been so busy. I haven't. So I talked about Be Cool before. So this is friends of mine who do all my car work and did the engine conversion on the Yaris. And they are very, very busy. And I didn't realize Ian was down there today until I saw a post by the owner of the garage on Facebook earlier. It was like, oh, Ian was there. Ian's car.
Yeah, my wheel was in the photo.
Yeah.
Like, there's like a really cool BMW, a Lamborghini, hot rod, and like the wheel of a Chevrolet Spark.
Yeah. So these guys always have really nice supercars and all sorts of stuff around the place. And then I rock up and leave half a Toyota Corolla outside for about 5 months. I mean, literally half a Toyota Corolla sitting outside and making their old place a mess.
So what's the engine conversion then that I've done for the Yaris or doing for the Yaris?
Oh well, it would be relatively close to your heart. So that Yaris was the very last car broken at Rockingham, on track at Rockingham.
Right.
Because so I went to track day, very last one there for Mission Motorsport. And I've had season ticket for years. It's about a mile away from me. And I pumped into that nice chap Richard Brunning from Project Binky and Bad Obsession Motorsport, and he said, "Oh, come on, he said, "Can I get a ride in the car?" But it still had the original 1.5 engine in. I was like, "Yeah, come on." But I'm not very good track driver. He says, "Okay." I was an instructor, so basically we spent about 20 minutes with us going around and him swearing at me and telling me to go faster and stop being such a wimp. And I'm paraphrasing quite heavily here.
Yeah.
And that was fine. That was great. And then I stopped. And I started again and had the rod knock of doom. So then it was like, well, what do we do? And it was just at the point where Mighty Car Mods did a Yaris engine transplant. And we said, it's the wrong generation of Yaris. It's the wrong engine. So my co-owner and best mate and I, we, after a lot of hand wringing, we put a Corolla T-Sport engine in. So it's a 1.8 with the VVTi with lift. That was in the Elise and the Exige. So
Indeed.
it's now putting out probably more than it should. And the reason it's a Be Cool is to get the suspension sorted, because there's also about 20 more kilos over the nose. And we deleted for some stupid reason. We thought, oh, we'll just try. It was mostly packaging to try and delete the power steering. And so it's getting power steering again and air conditioning, because when you get the people who spec the aircon from McLarens, you might as well get them to just shove it back into your Yaris again.
Yeah, indeed. And so Ian's first response at seeing a hot Yaris was, "Oh, I'm going to tell Alan about this."
Yeah,
not even realize you're very much the Yaris guy now. Then
I have been for quite a long time.
Yeah, indeed you have. Great to see you.
Sorry, I've just waffled far too long there. Never mind.
Because that whole setup is really interesting. Like, because that's like, I know Ciro from Petrol Hedonism, who runs the Sharnbrook Hotel, which is like it's a cool place to go. They do so. He basically was like, he's also involved in that dealership. I don't know how he's involved, but he's involved in the dealership.
Yeah,
but it's independent because I think it's a PSA.
Well, it's PSA related. And I'm looking at Joe as I say this. I can't remember the name of it now, but they've taken on. Yeah, it's gone from being purely independent garage to they're under another brand, but they're still independent. So it's a franchise thing. And the idea is it's for people who own cars which are maybe 5 to 8 years old, and it's to try and keep them within a trusted mechanicking network, but not necessarily clogging up the dealers. But these guys are aircon specialists first and foremost. That's the background. And do lots of engineering of that sort as well. Lots of homologation parts for actual, real, genuine manufacturers.
They're also hoping to make it a 24-hour garage as well.
Yeah, I know. I can't wait.
Wow. Whereabouts is it?
It's in Kettering, of all places, just down from the station. Yeah,
right near Rockingham, old Rockingham.
yeah, it's about 10 miles away. Yeah.
A 24-hour garage.
Yeah.
For fixing cars. Like you've been on your night out, you've had your kebab, and now you need an oil change.
Yeah. It does make a lot of sense, really, especially where it is, because there's lots of people do lots of shift work around here.
Right.
Because there's so much warehousing, there's so much but there's so much like manufacturing. So it's not as dumb as it sounds.
I think it sounds great.
I mean, I'm sorry, you literally mean like getting your car serviced at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yep.
Well, to be honest, it's not an unusual thing. In the truck garages do it. That's routine. So Volvo Trucks, Scania, DAF, those garages run 24 hours, and it's the same thing. If you've got smaller things, you've got vans, on your fleet, your plumbing fleet or whatever, then rather than take them out of service for a day, you have them done overnight. So they're still making you money. They're never stopping making you that money. In the fleet world, it's far more common.
Yep, fair enough. Yeah, I think it's going to be. Well, we'll see how successful it is, but I think a lot of the time it's awkward to try and get your car into somewhere because if life gets in the way. So if there's 24 hours a day that you can pop it in, then I think that makes sense, really.
Yeah.
Joe, let's move on to how things are going. I know spreadsheets you mentioned earlier, which is perhaps not the most exciting thing, but you do get to work in a world of cars at least. How's your month been?
Well, so at the moment, trying to pilot Vauxhall through chip shortage. So those of you who haven't heard much about that, there's a massive chip shortage for automotive chips, and it's causing lots of production shortfalls, delays, and so on. And we're losing thousands and thousands of cars every month that we should have built that we can't build. And it's affecting us, it's affecting the market. So it's trying to forecast quite how that affects the market. So those numbers that Alan reads out every month, well, that's my job is to forecast those. And in this, this environment, it's entertaining. I feel like I did something wrong because I joined the volume planning team, as we call it. And firstly, straight away, we had Brexit.
Yeah.
We got through Brexit, and then we had the pandemic, and we had factories shut and everything, and then we just get through that. Things come back to normal, and now we have a chip shortage. So it's been one thing after another, quite literally. So good fun.
What happens with the production of the cars then? Do you basically produce the car, wait for the chips, or do you just not bother producing the car?
No, the only things to do is either not produce the car at all, or to produce the car with some of the options or some of the kits just not on the car. So we've deleted wireless charging, for example, from a lot of cars. It's just not part of the spec anymore. So if you order XYZ trim, then it would have come with wireless charging, for example. And now it doesn't. It's either that or just don't produce the car at all because it's so embedded in it's part of components that go into the car. It's pretty sort of substantial. So.
So do you know if this chip shortage is just affecting Vauxhall or is it just?
No, it's global. It's global.
It is, yeah.
It's not just cars. It's been going on for a while. Yeah, last year I read something.
Yeah, and it's a combination of a number of different factors. But for automotive, it's pandemic hit. They all cancelled their orders for chips, and then they're now at the back of the queue because actually car demand picked up pretty quickly.
Oh, I see.
But Ford announced I think they were going to make 1 million cars less this year.
Oh, okay.
Globally.
I feel your pain though, because I had to wait like 3 months for my new roller boots because pandemic shortage for them. I was gutted.
Yeah. But we're having to sort of disappoint customers because we can't build their cars and all sorts. It's not ideal, and it's why the used car market has gone so crazy. Used car prices have gone through the roof.
Yep.
Yeah, completely unprecedented.
And completely unexpected circumstances here that impossible to predict this kind of stuff early on, wasn't it? So, very interesting. So it is actually more entertaining than spreadsheets sound.
Yes, it is.
Well, entertaining is a strange word to use, but yeah. Excellent. Yeah, good to hear. Richard, how's the last month been for you?
I'm all right, thank you. Still keeping fairly busy. Had a couple of days out when the rainy season out. I went up to Milton Keynes to have a catch-up day with Volkswagen. So because I think the launch of the Golf 8 was the first event that I had cancelled last year. So I'd never driven a Golf 8. So I drove the Golf 8 GTE, the electric transporter, and the ID3 and ID4. It's because I know that the ID4 is quite under demand at the moment on the press fleet. So if it was a way of A, helping them out so they didn't send the cars out to me, and B, if I could spare some time to go up there and do them all in one go, then that's what I did. So good. Interesting.
Good. You and I need to arrange this meetup. We keep talking about get the camper up.
You and me, Simon and me.
It's lots of it, isn't
Simon,
it? Yeah.
Well,
everyone on this call, I think, needs to kind of congregate around maybe Coventry and go to Ian's studio or something like that, or if there's an event.
Well, LA has been, so.
Yeah. I've been as well a while ago now.
Yeah. Well, I made you draw an Audi over and over again.
That one. That's when we were practicing because you had like an Audi event.
I had literally had a day.
I was your guinea pig.
I was like, Damo, right, you are going to draw an Audi now. And you were like, really? Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I like how he's just got it there, though. So here's one I made earlier.
I know. I've got everything to hand. You name something, I bet I can get it to hand within a second.
Gordon,
I saw Lewis as well. I saw Lewis yesterday. I saw Lewis in Bicester yesterday.
Did you?
Yeah, he was very happy with his new wheels on his Corvette. It makes it go faster, apparently.
Oh, really? Okay.
4.5 kilos per corner, apparently.
Is it really? Yeah. Wow, that's colossal. I was with Paul Cowland earlier and looking through his fleet of cars, and he's got a Plymouth Prowler. He's been, showed a few pictures of it on social media recently. And it's obviously a bizarre car. A lot of people watching this probably know what a Prowler looks like, and those massive rear wheels. And suddenly realised that those massive rear wheels are actually just the same size as on my estate car, because how times have changed now. These 20-inch wheels on the back of this hot rod looking thing, they're massive, but my car just has 20-inch wheels all round. It's strange how car design is just, the wheels have just filled these spaces, and what was cartoonish sort of size of wheel back when the Prowler was launched are just kind of commonplace now. And some of the cars that Paul had 22-inch wheels, and it's just incredible.
Was it the Prowler that then became like the horrible PT Cruiser?
They were the same sort of ilk, but they didn't really share that much.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that kind of the PT Cruiser was
car a face only a mother could love.
People loved them. People did love them, didn't they?
Strange people.
But no, it's great to kind of get out there again. Like we're all saying, it's good to get out on the road and actually chat to real people again. I know I haven't got around to Craig yet. Sorry. What I'm going to do actually, LA, I'm going to throw back to you before I go to Craig, because before I asked Craig about Formula One recently, been a couple of good races. Formula 2's been quite busy as well, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we had the Monaco weekend, but we've just had Baku, which was absolutely amazing. I mean, the races, the circuit, it's just got everything. And you know, I know there's a bit of a joke saying, yeah, let's race there every race, but can we just not design racetracks to be very, very similar to that? You know, there's absolutely zero chance of going over track limits, because the track limit is the wall, which is perfect and ideal. You know, and for that whole weekend we had so many battles. You know, the Formula 3 guys that have come up as rookies, you got your Piastri, your Lawson, your Poucher, you know, they're battling, taking each other off. You know, the promise that was Vips at the beginning that kind of disappointed a little bit, and then he just suddenly grabs this amazing double win. You know, double podiums too. Schwartzman, a determined Dan Ticktum on the charge, raging in that car, you know, double overtakes all over the place, places where he has no right to be overtaking cars. Yeah, got himself into a bit of trouble at one point, but then also got pushed off, you know, pushes, crashes. That circuit, you know, there's wide parts, there's long parts, there's DRS parts, there's overtaking, there's wiggly, you know, parts, the castle section. And for Formula 2, where the cars are equal, you know, remembering that there isn't advantages with different constructors, it absolutely gave everything, because you know, these drivers are just fantastic. And the challenge for them, they all brought it, you know, and it was such a pleasure to see some of the guys that we've had high expectations on their shoulders, including Robert Schwartzman this season, to deliver on such a tricky, difficult, you know, racetrack. It's just been such a joy. I think this weekend is like the epitome of Formula 2, really. And, you know, and obviously we know Craig's going to give us the Formula 1, but the whole weekend regarding Formula 1 and Formula 2 for me was just off the scale.
Yeah, well, it sounds you're a great advert for Formula 2, I have to say, because I think we're going to have to make sure we tune into every event if they could be as interesting as that. But then, like I say, the track had a big part to play in that. And Craig, how do you feel this track lends itself to Formula 1 then? Is it, you know, we had Monaco and now we had another street circuit like this, and they couldn't have been more different, really.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, like LA, I've been engrossed in the Formula 2 as well. They've been active at Monaco as well, and it's been, well, we've seen each other in the press conferences, waved at each other, and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, and I've been asking the important questions, such as why drivers just run off the podium when they should be spraying the champagne, and the very curious stories behind that. But yeah, with the Formula 1 in particular at Baku, they tend to either have one of two scenarios happen: either the race is dreadful and dull and nothing happens, or literally everything you can imagine happens. And once again, last year, this year turned out to be one of those scenarios where quite literally everything that could happen pretty much did. It's just a bit of a shame that it tended to happen pretty much in the last 5 laps. Rather than throughout the race, because there were points like during the Grand Prix yesterday that we were like, oh, it seems a little bit sort of straightforward at this point, and then all of a sudden, bam, Lance Stroll's had a tyre failure, and then you're like, okay, that's curious, and then bam, Verstappen's had a tyre failure out of the lead, having overtaken Charles Leclerc, who started on an incredible pole for Ferrari. And Lewis Hamilton through the pits, and Sergio Perez was very much up there as well in the second Red Bull, also overtaking Hamilton. But at that point, you're like, oh, well, that's dramatic. And then they red flagged the race and decided to have a 2-lap sprint. So it's very NASCAR style green-white checker, which was fun, to say the least. And Lewis Hamilton knocked his magic on, if you will. There's some very good stories, news stories explaining what all that's about on the internet from the likes of the race and Autosport, that explains all of those details. But basically, he didn't have any rear brakes going into turn 1, which is why he locked up his fronts massively. There's some brilliant commentary from Mark Webber as well, from the Channel 4 commentary, where he screams like a child basically when Hamilton goes off, and it allowed Sergio Perez to take an incredible win from Sebastian Vettel in the Aston Martin, taking Aston Martin's first F1 podium, and Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri, who's now taken 3 podium finishes in F1, a P1, a P2, and a P3. So. Yeah, quite an incredible race that we ended up having at Baku. Monaco was a bit naff, put it that way. First race in a very, very, very long time that we haven't even had a yellow flag, let alone a safety car. Incredibly, around Monaco of all places. But yeah, it was very.
And so about the one overtake, Craig. Come on, the one overtake.
Oh yeah, and the one overtake. They had the camera, because the Monaco broadcast is done by the ACM, the Automobile Club de Monaco. It's not the same usual FOM broadcast, which is why they were a little bit scruffy with the production of the race, if you will. In that regard, a brilliant overtake by Sebastian Vettel on Gasly coming out of the pits, and we missed it. And like the whole cutting away to Lance Stroll jumping over a curb meme is something that I'm not getting bored of anytime soon. As a result, but so it's sort of taking it back to like my own sort of life as well, as we haven't really sort of touched on that for about 6 years now, it feels like. Yeah, it sort of all feels like things are starting to get into a bit of a rhythm now, at least, with things opening up a little bit more. I've actually been to the pub for the first time in a very long time. That was a very nice and expensive trip with my mate last month. Let's not go on to anything else but that. But yeah, I'm off to a racetrack this weekend as well, which I'm really looking forward to.
Which one's that?
Thruxton.
Oh, really? Okay. What's going on there? And Ian's there by the sound.
Historic meeting. I'll have to see you, Ian.
I will be there. And it's what's really exciting about Thruxton, it's race cars inside, Land Rovers outside. I really like that kind of juxtaposition of like fast stuff, slow stuff.
I think it's got to be worth mentioning, though, to what the end of that, the Formula One Grand Prix, is our Formula 2 graduates. If any of you've managed to see that footage, I don't know if Craig wants to elaborate on that, but we heard a very unusual French word being used by our lovely Mick Schumacher.
Yes, that was an interesting situation that happened. Essentially, Nikita Mazepin in the other half, which we don't really talk about too much, ran out of battery juice on the final straight of the last lap, and decided to wildly chop Schumacher on one of the fastest points of the fastest street circuit in Formula One, and nearly caused what can only be described as an aeroplane accident between the pair of them. So Schumacher was very vocal about that. Over the team radio, but Schumacher came through to pit Mazepin to 13th, I think it was, in the race, which jumps Haas above Williams in the championship over last.
Right. Okay. So crucial at the back of the grid when your positions count. Even if you've got no points, this actually put Williams behind Haas. That's incredible. You're saying, LA, that the nature of Baku meant that there was no going outside of track limits, and if he did, then there was a mistake. And I think that kind of beget the safety cars that then created the coming together and all the tension. So does this mean that places like Paul Ricard really just shouldn't be on the calendar at all? Because even if a tire explodes and you go spinning, they're just gonna go into nothingness, aren't they? To some blue paint. And although that's great safety wise, and we all want that, it's not going to make for great racing, is it? So do you think places like Paul Ricard need to do something different? Or
I think they do. I think that I think it depends on the time of day as well, because for the Formula 2, you've also got to bear in mind that we had a morning race and a very, sort of early evening race. And so the ambient temperature and the track temperature also made a massive difference for those teams and those drivers for the sprint race 1 and the sprint race 2. And they had to adapt and adjust those cars ready for that evening race. And so I think that Formula 2 is very slightly different anyway, especially now we've got the 3 races over that weekend. But for Formula 1, I mean, I don't know how that's going to transpire on a at Paul Ricard for Formula 2, because or even for Formula 3, because they're the same cars. So whereas you're looking at different constructors and different types of cars, it does feel like a procession sometimes, doesn't it? And I know that Paul Ricard gets picked on quite a lot, but there are a couple of other circuits on the calendar that can be quite easily as like, including Monaco. Thank God that there's all that wonderful scenery around, a casino square, and then there's the sea. Amazing. I think that's why people watch. Otherwise, why are you watching a race where you can't overtake? Because look at the race when Daniel Ricciardo won it, and he had a bit of an issue and he was really, really slow. And he won that race, like, driving Miss Daisy, and everyone's just stuck behind the guy. So that's infuriating. I think tracks need to be looked at. I think track limits need to be enforced properly. If you don't want guys just going off and using corners and using bends, and don't just switch it around on the weekend. It's confusing. It's confusing for fans. There's one rule on a Friday and then another rule on the race day. And that's frustrating as a fan. So just make it that every single curb or every single whatever is just a track limit. Or guess what? Put the Armco barriers back up. And dangerous as anything. Of course they are. They're kind of terrible things, really, if you think about it. I mean, look at Bahrain last year for Grosjean and the way he went through that barrier. But something's got to happen, I think. We need the safety perfect no matter what. No matter what, we need the safety there, but we also need the excitement as well. And so if they're going to slow down cars or engines, or they're going to change, don't forget we're getting the new tyres next year for Formula 1, and it's made a big difference for Formula 2 already. And I'm just wondering if what happened to Lance Stroll and what happened to Verstappen, will happen when we get the new rims, and then the new tyres, because the tyres are going to be very, very different on those new rims. And it showed that in Formula 2. Because they did quite a lot of laps, sprint race 1, sprint race 2 on one tyre.
Can I just check? Sorry to interrupt. The new tyres, is it that they've got much bigger rims and much less sidewall? Is that? I'm sorry, I'm so out when it comes to F1 compared to you guys.
And they've actually got less wobble. They've got less wobble as well.
So they've got less. So basically, if they strike curbs with that, they're really going to feel it. They can't just let the tyre absorb it. It's more likely to do damage, so they should be staying off the.
It is, but
the curbs. Is that right?
The exciting thing is they can actually get a bit closer to the barriers, like they could in Monaco, because there's less wobble. So that made a difference. I had a chat with Mario Isola a couple of weeks ago, and he was explaining that in a bit more depth, about the rims, the tyres, and the tyres for F1 are not going to be the same size. They're not going to be the same as Formula 2. They're a different thing altogether. So that's going to still be something different than Formula 2. But I think it's probably going to be a bit more interesting. But what was interesting, I found, I don't know if you came across this, Craig, and it's a video of Mick Schumacher and his race from his point of view, and it's radio transmission throughout the Baku race yesterday, that when they were red flagged and they were in the pit lane, and they were lining up ready to set back off. And they said that they'd had a notification from Pirelli to put the rear tyre pressures up by 2 psi after Verstappen had, his tyre had exploded. But then they changed it back to the original quite reasonably quickly. So then the team has decided to take a little bit of pressure out the front tyres for Mick. And it wasn't any great revelation or anything, but I just found it quite a little bit interesting after what had happened to Stroll and Verstappen, that kind of thing was being tossed around and discussed. And I don't know what you think about that, Craig.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I do find it interesting how even though that Haas has got the slowest car on the grid and they expect to finish last, that they're still pushing the limits with these things rather than totally writing off the season as they said they basically would at the start of the year. So going back on the whole F2 tires that we've got for the current generation of cars are a lot more difficult to handle, judging from what I've spoken to with drivers and that over the past year and a half now. And that's something that will translate into the next generation of Formula One cars. There'll be a lot more skittish, I think is the way to describe it. A little bit like how when they introduced groove tires into F1 back in 1998, there were a lot of drivers that absolutely hated that change because it made it a lot more unpredictable for the drivers. And then you had the Finnish drivers, Mick Hakkinen and Mika Salo, and be like, yeah, we like it, as you'd expect from Finns. But yeah, certainly interesting, I think, going forward. And I do find it very interesting how involved Pirelli was in that particular scenario. I've only spoken to Mario once, and that was a good exchange that we had in the middle of a crowd in Autosport International right before the pandemic kicked off. But yeah, I do find it very, very sort of interesting how a team radio sort of goes across a race and across a race weekend as well. With these sorts of things, even with a driver who's like stuck basically at the back of the grid, who's a rookie as well. But I've been generally quite impressed with Mick and his progress this year. Just quietly getting on with it and showing a little bit of what we saw last year in Formula 2, with some electrifying starts and brilliant race pace at times, and so some of the credentials that you really need to be a very good Formula One driver.
Yeah, definitely one to watch.
It's very difficult to judge Mick Schumacher at the moment because normally you can make a direct comparison to a teammate, but there's no point making the direct comparison to the teammate.
Yeah.
And if you can't make a direct comparison to the teammate, you can make a direct comparison to a comparable car, and there isn't really a comparable car either. So it's very hard to tell. I appreciate what he was like in F2, but it's very hard to tell whether or not he's actually adapted to F1 or not.
I kind of feel though that, I mean, obviously the other Haas car is pretty much identical. So the races between him and Maz, I'd actually like to see more of that, not necessarily on the live show, but on YouTube later on or the day after, to see how they're comparing within that race. But it seems like Mick is getting the upper hand. Which is, which obviously goes to show what happened last year in Formula 2, because Mick won the championship and Mazepin didn't, he came further down the line. And really that is the direct comparison in a way, that Mick is obviously more superior driver to have won that championship. But it's more interesting to watch what they're doing during the race, and who finishes ahead of who. And how they handle that pressure, because if anyone just jumps on YouTube after this, we're on YouTube now, so jump on it after this and have a look at that very last moment of that last lap yesterday. He is literally inches in front of him on that checkered flag. It's minuscule. It's unbelievable how Mick just takes that checkered flag at the very last 2 seconds or whatever it is of that race, and despite almost being pushed into that wall, just incredible how he just handled that straight away. And the guy's a thinker like his father. The guy's thinking all the way through that race, very calculated. He's going to win championships.
I think everyone loves his engineer as well. There's been a lot of on Twitter and YouTube, everyone going, oh, listen to Mick's engineer, he's so gentle. And when Mick span it at Imola, it was, all right, don't worry. We'll go around the track. We'll get that replaced for you. We'll give you some new tyres and you get yourself unlapped and we'll get yourself caught up. And it was like, oh, thank you.
I think it's got the same engineer that Kevin Magnussen had last year, if I remember rightly.
Yeah, I've heard jokes about Grosjean's old engineer thinking, oh, God, I miss Grosjean. Because he was telling Mazepin to press a button around Monaco and he's going, I can't. And I can imagine I wouldn't be able to anyway, but I'm not an F1 driver. Of trying to keep a car out the barriers whilst operating basically a smartphone with knobs and dials. But the other 19 drivers can do it.
But then he had a bit of a laugh this weekend, and they asked him to do something else while he was stopped in the middle of the track, and he did it, no problem. And he went, "Yeah, well, I'm not a Monaco now, am I?" So.
Oh, is that what he said? But the thing is, we want to see this direct comparison for Mick, but then not too far into the race, Mazepin was half a minute behind Mick.
Yeah.
So we're not ever going to see that face. And it's the only reason that they were so close at the end is because the safety car came out and Mazepin can make the lap back up. By all rights, Schumacher was a second lap quicker and should have just been completely out of sight. So we're not going to see the comparison because there isn't a comparison. I don't think. Exactly. Maybe there'll be the odd race this year where it's different. But
we were saying about.
Can I ask a red green question? Do people have red green things at hand at the moment?
No.
Yeah,
go for it.
I've got them.
Watching the race, I had a kind of a realization while I was watching the race. I asked the question: red or green? Is there a reasonable chance that Max is going to take the championship this year?
What was the question?
Is there a reasonable chance that Max is going to take the championship this year? So there you go. So that was my realization while I was watching the race. It was like, you know what, I'm beginning to accept the possibility that Max could actually take this year, despite everything that happened, and you know, basically, he was, whether he was lucky or unlucky or is up for debate. But he was leading the race. I mean, he was controlling that race. And
with maturity.
Yeah.
With maturity, he wasn't making any mistakes. It wasn't as if like, oh my God, I'm out in front of Mercedes for once. This is a new experience. He was just in control of it, like he'd been doing it for as long as Hamilton.
Yeah, I mean, and as well, and the Mercedes isn't dominating. I mean, there's just a much bigger gap between Lewis and Bottas than there has been recently. I think we're really seeing how much better Lewis is, because clearly the Mercedes is not as good this year, relatively speaking, as it has been in previous years.
Well,
and
Lewis
is really ragging everything out of it, and Bottas isn't.
You can tell on the radio that Lewis is pushing it. He's a lot shorter and sharper with his answers, and he seems a bit breathless because he's having to really work hard. And Bottas, I mean, Bottas, he wasn't even the quickest Finn. I mean, Kimi just rocked up and just said, "Oh, I'll have this one then," as he does sometimes. So Bottas really.
It's something that I tweeted during the race, and I've been very much a defender of Bottas, because being Lewis Hamilton's teammate is probably the hardest job in the world.
Sergio begs to differ.
Yeah, but Max doesn't even have the records to sort of back that up. But Lewis is Valtteri literally wakes up every morning and goes, "I'm the teammate to the most successful Grand Prix driver of all time, without question." And he's expected to perform against him, and social media will lynch, upon him, even if he's a 10th slower or 100th slower. But his performance at Baku was inexcusable, and it's as simple as that.
Russell was getting close again.
Do you think something's changed? Do you think he knows something about next year or something like that? There's a psychological change?
No, I think it's partly because Mercedes were hopeless at Baku this weekend, and it was Hamilton that was making the difference.
Yeah.
And Bottas was unable. It's role reversal basically from Monaco, where Hamilton was nowhere, although he did request to Mercedes to make changes to the car, which Mercedes was like, "Nah, we know what we're doing," and it turned out they did not know what they were doing. But Bottas was able to make a bad car into a podium chasing car before he had a 48-hour pit stop. And like just this time around, Bottas was quite simply nowhere, and like you can't be finishing P15 or whatever it is in a Mercedes.
No, I agree. You're not a little bit impressed? I'm not sure it's been confirmed properly, but were you not a little bit impressed with the fact that tree branch, whatever it was that Lewis hit, was potentially what caused that big gash in the front wing that maybe affected his race? And if it was affecting the car in the race, it kind of makes it even more impressive that what he did.
Yeah,
compared to Bottas, definitely.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, like, there are so many scenarios where I think we don't take Hamilton's prowess and excellence as a Grand Prix driver for what it is. And I think it's only the sort of thing that we'll be looking back on in 20, 30 years time and going, wow, like look at all these records and all these races that Lewis won and all of these results he was dragging out of a car which had no right in qualifying second on the grid, for example, and fighting for a podium and all that sort of stuff. But he did fluff it as well with like knocking a switch. So I mean, is that as well that he has to take on the chin?
Yeah,
I mean, that was a bit old school as well. I mean, it used to be that a driver would fluff a gear change, and that's what would ruin his race. And for too long now, the cars have, I hate to say it, but have been too easy to drive. There's been nothing there's been no mistakes like that are acceptable mistakes. The kind of mistakes that you're going to make at some point over a 90-minute race. The cars recently haven't really had those. Haven't had that possibility of input, that possibility of human error. So something that as I say, at some point in every race, a driver would fluff a gear change.
Yeah.
Most of the time you wouldn't notice, and most of the time it wouldn't matter. But occasionally it would happen in a way and in a place that he'd lose the position because of it.
It was something that our very own Neil Briscoe pointed out to me on Twitter earlier, actually. And I was like, oh, these cars are getting way too complicated. It was like Nigel Mansell, Canada, 1991. And I was like, oh, yeah. And for a bit of context, Mansell was comfortably leading at Canada in 1991, was on course to take victory. And then he just sort of dropped the revs too low, started waving to the crowd and all that sort of stuff. And then the engine died.
Oh, so he didn't run out of fuel?
No.
I always thought that was
Yeah, it was a mistake. I remember that.
Very much a mistake. Williams may have claimed he ran out of fuel, but it was very much a mistake on his part for sure. That allowed.
Sorry, I think my point is we're not going to go back to 3 pedals and people being able to fluff a clutched manual gear change, but having more complexity, having more buttons on the wheels is not necessarily a bad thing. Like make it harder, give them stuff that they can fluff, that they can make the wrong decision on, that they can forget to flick the switch. Give them stuff like that because it can makes the race more interesting.
Pretend button. Like add more buttons, they have to guess which button.
And they're not allowed to label them either.
Dynamic buttons, like a touch screen on a Tesla or something. You have to kind of how do I switch on the wipers today?
Let's not repeat the longest question from an F1 press conference. Would you like more buttons or less? What do you think about the technical? All that? Yeah. Gentlemen, a short view back to the past. And
Vettel, you weren't listening. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah. That's fantastic, wasn't it? You imagine, it'd be really interesting because that is how drivers will make errors now, I guess. A lot of times they've got race engineers in their ears as well. So they can kind of keep on top of if there's a problem with the car, as in the past they'd have to figure that out themselves. If they were having problems with tire temperatures or brake temperatures, they'd have to figure that out and drive around it. So
I asked a bit of a long question though the other day, Craig. Didn't you notice like that Yuri had like forgotten half of it, and then Tom just went, no, that was it. It's just that one. I was like, you didn't answer the other half of my question.
We've had that sort of scenario a couple of times. I would have asked a question to all 3 drivers, and then like 2 of them would answer, and then next question. And what?
The one you wanted didn't answer.
Yeah, basically. But and I mean, like with Yuri, it's sort of been going around on social media. It's a little bit weird, sort of hearing my voice on Formula 2's official social media channel, but basically Yuri Vips darted from the podium after his first win. I was like, oh, okay, that's a bit sort of strange. So I pressed him on that, asking all the hard-hitting questions during these sessions, and he was like, oh yeah, they made my spare race suit 30 centimeters smaller in every area. So I refused. I simply didn't want to wear it.
But you thought you'd asked a stupid question, and it was just what was all talked about for the rest of the weekend. So it was like
really
the best question of the year, So Craig asked that. My friend, I know Craig is my friend.
I think we need to give you 2 a secret word to throw into one of these questions and see if we can spot it. So maybe you could challenge each other. Craig could give LA a word and vice versa, and then see if he can get it into a question.
I love this kind of stuff. I'm up for that.
All right, I'll leave that to you two, and then we'll keep an eye out for it. But before I throw to Alan, who has some red-green questions from a while ago, I'm just going to ask another red-green question while we're on F1, and that's: do you think Mercedes will stick with Bottas for the whole season?
They aren't Red Bull.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's basically my
I'm
little
being
thinking I have on
controversial,
these.
like
I agree
Ian.
with what Cammie's just said.
I'd like to know why Ian put red up. Who else did Richard?
I kind of feel that Bottas is kind of checked out a little bit. That's the thing. I don't know whether he'll be pushed or whether he'll just go. I don't know. He doesn't seem to have the drive. He says he has the drive, but then I don't know whether he actually has it. And it's a long season, so don't know.
He put his personal car, his Mercedes, up for sale recently, didn't he? Quite publicly as well, as if he was making a bit of a statement. Do you think maybe we're looking into that too much, and he's just literally just trying to sell his car and get another more flash Mercedes, or was he actually trying to give a hint to the relationship dying
Who
off?
else put red up? Did Richard? Did you put red up?
Yeah, but I don't know anything about F1 at all. I'm just going on what you've been saying.
Yeah, fair enough. Right, I'll hand over to you then, Alan, because I know you've had these questions now for a while, and we keep missing the chance to get round to them. So it's already coming up to 9 o'clock.
I mean, it's going to be a terrible, terrible disappointment, I'm afraid.
Never.
So they were only written about 6 weeks ago. So some of them I can't even remember why I wrote them.
Right. Okay.
Anyway, let's start off at the top because that way I don't get confused. Supercar, try again. You see, first word, fluffed it up. Superchargers are superior to turbochargers. More delay than I would expect. Also, more turbo people than I would have thought. Yay, superchargers won. Fantastic. Wrong hand driving, as in driving a right-hand drive car on the wrong side of the road, and vice versa, isn't as big a problem as people think.
I had this conversation today.
I promise this was written about, as I say, 6 weeks ago. So
it's not a problem, but I find that if like say because I'm more used to driving over here, so if I'm in a situation where I've got to act quickly or do something quite quickly, even if it's an automatic, bear this in mind, it's kind of like a scramble for the gear stick, so I'm hitting my door handle like, what am I doing?
but that would be the same whichever side of the road you were driving.
Yeah, exactly. So, is the question driving the left-hand drive car in a right-hand drive country?
Yes,
or,
it really
or
is,
flipping, because I often flip from one side to the other, and it's much easier than a lot of people think it is. But driving the wrong car on the wrong side of the road.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah, no,
McLaren
it's problematic.
McLaren F1, I wish.
Yeah, McLaren F1 owners are laughing at the moment.
Yeah, I didn't.
All of them sit there and count their money. Yes.
Yeah, watch ZoomZoomers.
Yeah, they.
I think what's even harder is getting in the wrong side when you're a passenger and you're not quite on the bar. You're trying to get in the driver's side if you're like, what am I doing? Or on a bus or the coach and the door's on the other side.
Climb over the gear stick.
The one time I made a mistake, it was the first time that I drove in Britain after I'd left Britain. So I came back and I picked up a hire car at Stansted. And it was a brand new Volkswagen Polo. It had like 3 miles on the clock. And it was just full of all these stickers and signs all over it saying, remember, we drive on the left. And I pulled them all off and I laughed. It's like, I got my driving license in Britain. I know how to drive in Britain. I don't need these reminders. And I pulled out of the car park and drove the wrong way around the roundabout.
I've done it a few times in the States where I've pulled out when the road's been empty. You've kind of not got a clue. You pull out of a car park or something, or a petrol station, and then you could be driving along up to some lights and you're thinking, it doesn't quite feel right. What's the lights are on? I'm on the wrong side of the road. So now I haven't. I mean, your question's slightly different, Alan, but now all I put in my own head is drive next to the centre line, drive next to the centre line, drive. That's all I repeat. Centre line, centre line. Is that where I am? I'm all right.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I do. That's my mantra as well. Anyway,
did you ever see that episode of Dragon's Den where someone had this amazing idea to have a glove that you wore on the hand?
Oh yeah.
And then the dragons went, why don't you just buy a pair of gloves?
I'm out. I don't like it. I'm out.
It's the revelation of just one glove. You go, yeah, but you can buy two really cheap. It just, oh yeah.
There used to be a product that was advertised in Autocar. I'll find one somewhere that was always advertised for years and years and years. It was a mirror that you put on the other side of the car for driving on the continent. So it's when you were driving on the wrong side of the road, you had it was like a little periscope essentially. It was like a horizontal periscope. So that even though you were driving your British car and sitting on the right, you could see through the left for overtaking in France.
Yeah, you could look around the truck on the Route Nationale, so you could rather than having to pull right out when there might be.
That's a good idea.
I'm gonna
I think one of the worst transitions that you have to make is if you're in a country like Canada driving into the States or vice versa. So 1 minute you're kilometers per hour, and then the next minute you're miles. And I got literally a mile over the border. They obviously sit there waiting, for the dosh, and I was obviously going the wrong speed because I was looking at my kilometer, whichever way around it was, and I got caught for speeding. So I actually didn't do it on purpose, but they obviously know people are just not they're gonna take a few miles to just realize that you've now just changed from km to
so you were doing 100 miles an hour in America and you're like, this feels fine, this feels about right.
Yeah.
Feels good. Open highway, road trip, yay!
Why am I passing everybody?
Like me on the M40. Yeah.
I'm Lewis Hamilton.
Sorry, Alan.
That's all right. Next up, it's fine. I like adaptive cruise control.
Never used. What do we do if we have no experience with these questions?
What's adaptive? What does adaptive mean? Is it just?
It means it sets your speed from the car in front and keeps you a distance back.
That implies I have money to afford such a car.
I don't have a car.
I
just borrow them off people.
40 mile an hour, fourth gear on the motorway. Oh no.
Alan, I don't have your stunning good looks and charm to sweet talk people into lending me their cars.
I still don't know how I do it, to be honest. I haven't even slept with anyone. What's a good one? Touch screens in cars are getting out of control in both size and number. This is such an easy score.
Yeah. I've got a Volvo with a cassette deck. I've got a touch screen in my car.
That's enough technology.
That's plenty. That I'll take that as being green then, Ellie. That was a clean sweep in that case.
Thank you. Yeah.
What next? Colin McRae is overrated as a rally driver.
I think that's illegal to say in Scotland.
Oh, he's better than me. It's all right.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's the opposite of the cruise control one. What else we got? Sprint qualifying.
Oh, okay.
That's it. I tried to put some in for you motorsport people.
I want to give it a go.
Yeah.
It's a bit mixed, isn't it? That's us mixed opinions on that one.
As entertainment, as at the track, and you want to see something else, I think it's great. I don't know whether it'll work.
No.
I try anything.
Yeah, agreed with Ian.
I really liked the sim races last year when they were doing the two. What was it? Craig, help me out here. Like the 1 lap race thing.
Oh, the virtual Grand Prix with the 1 lap.
Yeah, I like
crazy,
that.
all that sort of stuff. With the sprint race qualifying, I'm just like, it's on at 6 o'clock on a Friday night, and at that point, I'm wanting to get drunk rather than worry about motorsport at this point. So I'm like, really? Plus, it's just like, I just don't think it will work essentially, because I mean, you take the qualifying, the qualifying proper, you have that, and then you have a race, and then you're like, by the time you actually get to the Grand Prix, you already know what everybody's race pace is going to be, and you're just like, well,
too much.
What's the point? Yeah,
I could see it getting confusing for viewers as well. Saying, well, where's qualifying, and what's this then? What's this race? What are they racing for? Are they racing? And,
I still feel it's a bit odd. I know this is a subject in its own right, and maybe we can on this another time. But I just feel it's a bit odd that once you've done the qualifying on the Friday, we're waiting 2 days to see that. Eventually 2 races later, all that excitement, all that drama, all those press conferences, and it's like Sunday. It's like, oh, here we go. Here's the qualifying race then. And I'm feeling a bit odd with it at the minute. But as I say, that I think that's worth of conversation in itself later on.
Okay. What else have I got here? Turkey is a preferable F1 circuit to Montreal. It's the only Grand. Oh no, it's not. It's one of 2 Grand Prix circuits I've driven. There you go.
Come on, Craig. Come on, Woolard.
I'm surprised at the amount of concern going on here. Actually, I thought
Albert Park's a great track.
I like both. I really like both.
Yeah.
For very different reasons. Turkey is fantastic with its undulation and elevation change, and its ability to produce some very surprising races out of nowhere and so forth. But Canada's got some
it's
brilliant.
in the middle of the river.
Yeah, no, it literally is built on a man-made island.
Yeah,
which is like incredible to think of. Really, it's the first Grand Prix circuit to be built on a man-made island. The second is Yas Marina, and the walls. I know the feeling, Cammy, from own experience. It is dreadful, but like Canada, it's such a very fun circuit to drive. It's a bit like Monaco, but without the slowness of the circuit. It's just flat out heartbreaking, and it's just you and the walls, and you need to nail every single apex. And it's also got the Wall of Champions.
I tried to go as close as I could to the Wall of Champions in a rental Hyundai Accent. It wasn't quite the same. 30 kilometers an hour.
Did everyone see the Dacia Logan
on the Nürburgring?
At the Nürburgring 24, it sort of became a hero for everybody. Everyone was cheering it on. Just like there's Lamborghini, Ferrari, Porsche 911, Dacia Sandero, Dacia Logan. What
I love about the Nürburgring 24 hours is that every now and then you just get some sort of insane car that rocks up. The 1995 edition had a Peugeot 806.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, that is incredible. Right, was that the Spa 24 hours?
I kind of think like Turkey last year, we'd done all this massive build up for it, and most of us had watched, that fantastic race that Lewis had won back in his GP2 days, and then we sat and watched the actual race, and it was a bit like, right.
Anyway, I've got one last one.
All the way.
Okay.
One last one, folks. Mazepan spun.
So is this question written 6 weeks ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just like, yeah.
There is literally a website that's just called mazatspit.in.
This was just before it came out. Anyway, that's me done.
No, it's not with that many.
I know. I edited some out because we talked
far too much. Some in.
Yes, we've got a few more minutes, haven't we, guys?
Have we?
Yeah,
they're a bit dull, to be perfect. To be honest,
spinning around. Someone's is spinning around.
The others are actually a bit dull now that I read them, so that's it.
That's it. Oh, okay. LA, you need to calm down.
Alan to ask questions.
What's that?
Anybody wants Alan to ask more questions? Red or green?
Oh, green, okay.
Give us one more, Alan, just so LA doesn't just, I don't know, explode or something.
Burst of blood vessel.
Yeah, what are you drinking tonight, LA?
Guinness.
Right.
Crystal glass.
That's not her first Guinness tonight, is it?
Right. I understand what a mild hybrid is.
A mild hybrid? No.
I thought he was going to say something about mile high. I'm like,
no, mild
I am not answering that question.
I've had a few recently. I still don't really understand the point of them. It's
mild like cheddar, I understand, but mild hybrid?
Yeah, mild cheddar is preferable.
I think mild hybrid is just getting around congestion charge zone.
It's called a big alternator. Sorry. I've had a few recently, and they've been. I just didn't like them. So there we go. Anyway.
Stick a Skeletric motor on your 4x4 and call it a hybrid sort of thing.
Yeah.
Did you ask me a question, Damien? Did you say my name?
No, I told you. I don't know. I don't know, LA. I don't know what's going on, but probably. Just say what you want to say. Did you have Did you want me to ask you a question? I don't know.
I thought you said my name just as I interrupted you about Alan's questions. I was like, what? What do you want?
No, it was ask a question to keep Ellie to make.
Oh yeah.
And I'm afraid that is what was left. So.
Cool.
Alan, well done on your 400th episode of your
Thank you.
pod.
It's the
Thank you.
podcast, isn't it? It's the motoring podcast. It's the trendsetter and the the trailblazer, really.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I think we're now Gareth Jones on Speed still more, but over 10 years or over 14 years now for Gareth Jones on Speed, whereas we've done it in 5.5.
Wow.
400. Yeah, it's quite scary.
Is it still easy to get the news stories coming in and have stuff to talk about? Is it getting harder? Or
Yeah, well, there was a period when it got a bit harder because there just weren't any, because nobody was doing anything. But amazingly, we still managed to fill half an hour each week. And the hardest one to find is the silly and finally stories.
Oh, really?
Genuinely, they are at the minute. The really lightweight stuff is really hard to find. That's the hardest story to pick of the week. Everything else just kind of falls into place on the way through a Tuesday when all the press releases come out. But
Yep.
the finalies are hard. Whenever we start talking about special edition gloves and glove colors or wiper blade things, then that we've had to go to news press and we've had to basically we've got the bottom of the barrel and we're going we've not got there yet.
Any review podcasts coming up?
No,
not those
planned. Not planned. The reason being, we covered, this was the most popular question we were asked, because we did the 400th, we did an ask us anything type of setup. And the most popular question that we got in was, when's review coming back? And the answer is not at the minute.
Okay.
And it's because there are now so many very, very good interview chats with people podcasts, British people podcasts, as opposed to just American ones, that we're not going to add anything by doing that.
Are you sure?
Yeah,
Andrew seems certain, so that's it's rear view is Andrew's gig.
Okay.
It's the podcast that he always wanted to do.
Yeah, fair enough.
And that's
I do miss review, but I also understand Andrew, because there are certainly a lot of podcasts that are basically doing that interview format, and when review came out, it was the first. But I do miss it.
It's sad. We all miss it, to be honest, because I'm yes, lots of people miss it. And my special editions are intentionally different. So
yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh well.
Alan, last time I had the 400th one, and I was just going to say, I can't believe that first alternative fuels one we did was that long ago.
It was a long time ago.
370 odd.
Yeah, it's like number 30 something.
Yeah.
I remember most about that night is my internet kept cutting out in my hotel in Sweden. And also, you and Andrew just kept on talking as I watched the clock creep towards midnight. And it was like, please stop. And I think at one point it got cut, but at one point it was like, look, I'm sorry, guys, can we finish up because I need to go to bed?
Well, wasn't one of them we had to cut it into two?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, not just Chevy, that one, but yeah.
No, there was another one that we had to cut it into two. It might well have been the designers one with Near on as well. That was another one that went on late into the evening, even later for him. But thank you. Yes, 405 now, I think.
Yeah, and long may it continue. Fantastic stuff. Talking of later to the evening, it looks like Craig's disappearing into the darkness there. So before he disappears, Craig, have you got a final fact of the week for us before we wrap up?
Yeah, I forgot to turn my light on before we started, and it's getting a little bit darker cool. Outside. Yeah,
it's like an album cover or something. It's really, put some like captions across it or something like that. It's quite cool.
Yeah, like that.
Sinead O'Connor.
The little parental advisory sticker in the corner.
I very much require a parental advisory sticker. But yeah, basically, my fact of the week is one from Baku, actually, which I've stolen from the internet for a change. And only one driver in the turbo hybrid era of Formula One has taken victories with 2 separate teams?
I know who it is.
Sergio
Oh.
Perez.
Mm-hmm.
He's won 2 Grand Prix, and he's won 1 with Red Bull and 1 with Racing Point. And he's the only driver to have won Grand Prix with 2 separate teams since the start of 2014. So, like Sebastian Vettel, Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, Nico Rosberg.
Oh, anywhere or just in Baku? You mean
Oh
anywhere?
no, anywhere.
Anywhere.
He's the first driver to win.
In the hybrid era. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow, that's
since
crazy.
so since 2014.
That doesn't seem right, but it is because Craig
Long
told
time.
us. So,
Craig's always right.
well, we need Vettel to step up another step of the podium. Then it's good to see Aston Martin doing well because they announced obviously the link up with Racing Pride, which is a fantastic step in Formula One, I think. And it's Cami as a ambassador for, and part of the team at Racing Pride. It's supposed to be fantastic to have a podium and the Racing Pride. The logo's on the car, I think, isn't it?
I was looking for it. I couldn't see it. It wasn't on the T. I couldn't see it on the T cam.
Right.
Well, what is that collaboration going to look like, Cami? What is the partnership about?
I'm not so privy to or not really able to say so much at the moment. We'll have to get Richard on the show again, and when he knows he's allowed to say certain things like just non-disclosure agreements, he'll be able to spill the beans. But Racing Pride partnership, and then immediately Vettel gets a podium. Coincidence? I think not.
It's a good omen.
It is good. It's great to see. Yeah, it'd be good to get Richard on the show, get Charlie back maybe as well, and get a few of you together to talk about how Racing Pride is going. But it seems to be going from straight. And Chris Sharp, of course, be good to get him back. And
we miss Chris. He's not been on for ages.
He's a busy guy, and it's we do miss him. But he's got his wild projects which all seem to be coming true. So it's great to see. But yeah, I think we'll send out another invite and just remind them that we'd love to hear from him again. But for this edition, the June edition, 2021 of ZoomZoomers, I think that's probably it because it's 9:15. The next edition will be on the 5th of July, which is 4 weeks away today. So hopefully I'll see you guys back there and maybe a few more people then. We'll have a bit of the usual chat about Formula One, but we'll also try and bring in a lot more kind of everyday car stuff. And hopefully there'll be plenty of chips for people to be buying new cars as well. So it'd be good to have a chat about the state of play in new cars and lots of events as well. I think we're all looking forward to events, and we can all bump into Ian and get selfies and stuff like that. So that sounds good to me. But for this time around, thanks for that fact of the month, Craig. I wonder who the next driver will be. Maybe it'll be Vettel. Who knows? I'm not sure who it would be next, really.
I mean, if Vettel wins, then that will totally destroy that statistic because he won with Ferrari. So
yeah, exactly.
I kind of don't want him to win in a way, but we'll see how things go.
Well, it just kind of points out how few drivers have won a race, really, when you think about you sort of count them on two hands, can't you? But yeah, anyway,
I was still a lot more impressed though in a way with Perez winning the Sakir Grand Prix in that Racing Point because of the way he just worked up that field, and you can catch that video on YouTube of lap after lap after lap was absolutely incredible. I've not seen a drive like that from anybody for many years, so well deserved, proving what a great driver he really is after being in the background for so long. So I
think it's the first time that neither Hamilton, Bottas nor Verstappen, neither three scored any points since 2008?
2013 Japan.
Oh, was it 2013? I thought it was much longer than
that. Yeah, and Max was in karting at that point.
Yeah, it's insane.
That is insane. Yeah, what a strange Grand Prix it was. But more of the same, hopefully, hopefully coming soon for Formula One to give it a bit of a zhuzh up, because it needs something, and maybe a sprint qualifying will do that. But anyway, for tonight, thanks to everyone for coming along. It's been great to see you all, and apologies for my technical issues at the start of the thing, but I think we've all forgotten about that now, which is nice. And we'll see you. Well, I'll see you on social media, of course. The best way of getting in touch with ZoomZoomers is just to tweet us. Chris, he wasn't here tonight. He was on dad duty. Chris will always be manning the social media feed, so it's good to get in touch with us that way. But also, of course, we have our own social channels, and I think social media is definitely the way to get in touch with us all if you have any questions or suggestions of what you'd like to see, anything like that. If you are watching along on YouTube live or watching back, then please like it, leave a comment, subscribe, all those kind of great things that mean that we show the YouTube algorithm that this is good content that you like to see. But for now, until the 5th of July, that's it from us, and we'll see you then. Thank you so much.